The bold experimental model by an interesting company named the CX due to its low drag coefficient, with some technical features and appearance, resembled a small airplane without wings rather than a real civilian motorcycle. Gilera CX 125, a motorcycle inspired by airplanes. At one time, the European market for beginner motorcycles was dominated by an interesting category of sporty two-stroke machines. Countries like Italy and the United Kingdom restricted new young riders to 125 cubic centimeters. So-called training machines, this category of motorcycles was well served by most major manufacturers. Such special models for learners often had the style of racing sport motorcycles and sharp dynamics to appeal to the average 17-year-old teenager who wanted to look fast, even if by law their machine could not have more than 15 horsepower. Most of these special offers for students are mainly inspired by their larger stablemates. Thus, you can get miniature Yamaha YZF-R, Honda NSR-CBR, Aprilia RS, or even a mini replica of the iconic Ducati 916, sold as Kajiwa Mito. However, there was one notable exception to this rule when a manufacturer went all in and bet on creating a completely unique design that would break stereotypes. Gilera produced possibly the strangest 125 cubic centimeter sport bike of all time. The radical Gilera CX 125 quickly achieved cult status, featuring some of the most futuristic designs ever to grace a beginner's bike. The design of the CX was largely based on the architecture of the SP and Chrono and was developed by the renowned Italian designer Luciano Marabise. Marabise was quite prolific during his time at Gilera. He also designed the KZ, KK, Dakota, MX, XR, and SP models, and then went on to sketch for Moto Guzzi. The CX concept was presented at the Milan show in 1989. The CX prototype, named for its low drag coefficient, looked like any other concept motorcycle, an impressive appearance, but unlikely as a potential production motorcycle. It was a tiny sports machine with a fully enveloping body, resembling something out of a Japanese cartoon, and had an interesting single-sided suspension on both sides. While single-sided swing arms have been present on production machines for several years, we can thank Honda for this innovation with their patented Pro Arm. No one had seen a single-sided front suspension on anything, other than those same experimental Grand Prix prototypes by ELF. Indeed, the CX was clearly inspired by French machines, especially the ELF 2.84, with its alloy wheels and futuristic bodywork. The history of unique prototypes is featured in a separate segment on the channel, and in my opinion, it is one of the most interesting episodes ever. Links are in the suggestion, description, and pinned comment. It was hard to believe that the CX would go into mass production, but it became a reality, and it hit the market. In 1991, as a fully functional motorcycle for public roads, with the same space-age style and crazy suspension as the 1989 prototype. Moreover, it was only slightly more expensive than the Chrono 125, with which it shared the showroom. And not without reason, the CX was essentially just a Chrono with an interesting front suspension and a cool body. The style was exotic and entirely modern, but not groundbreaking. The fully enclosed body and streamlined design had been shown a few years earlier in the Suzuki Nudo concept. The plot is also on the channel, and plastic itself became fashionable precisely at the end of the 80s. Models like the Bimota DB1, TC1D, Ducati Passo, and Honda Hurricane are just proof of that. Indeed, the CX went further, weighing the beak over the front wheel more heavily for better aerodynamics. The 17-inch alloy wheels, produced by Grymica along with the brakes, also match this aerodynamic theme. Marketers advertised the CX as so aerodynamic that it was just as fast as its more powerful, but unnamed competitors. In fact, the claimed top speed was even slightly lower compared to the Chrono and SP, just over 160 km per hour. Under the bodywork, the production CX had the same twin-box stock steel frame and ESP02 engine as the Chrono, with minor changes to the exhaust system to enhance the mid-range. The compression was reduced by half a point to 13:1. The claimed power was now 30 horsepower, compared to 35 on the Chron, and the exhaust valve was now controlled by a microprocessor. The engine could now feature a separate lubrication system and reed valves on the intake. The cylinder made of light alloy does not have a liner. It is replaced by a wear-resistant coating based on silicon compounds. The smooth operation of the engine was ensured by an additional balancing shaft. The gearbox, like the engine as a whole, is quite standard, a 6-speed with a multi-plate clutch and an oil bath. The most interesting thing is the front suspension, made for Gilera by the company Paoli, which at first glance seems like a highly advanced system, but in reality, it is surprisingly simple. The best way to summarize it is that an aircraft landing gear strut was installed on a motorcycle. It consists of a single short fork installed under the steering column, and a lower element to which the front wheel is console-mounted. The operating principle is the same as that of an inverted fork of the usual type. But this was in 1989, when the conventional telescopic fork still reigned supreme. Additionally, the theoretical advantage of the system was increased rigidity with the same weight and a larger tube diameter, which was supposed to positively affect the hydraulics performance. The cantilever mounting of the front wheel allowed it to be quickly detachable. The brake disc was positioned exactly along the longitudinal axis of the motorcycle, so there was no forward twisting during braking, a drawback of conventional systems with a single brake disc. However, it turned out that the breakthrough system does not provide any real advantages over traditional telescopic forks. Aside from the engineering, it looks cool. And that, perhaps, is its entire point. The CX was not an innovative machine in anything except style. It didn't look like anything else on two wheels back then, and it still doesn't. But under the plastic, everything is quite simple. Despite the fact that the CX attracted a lot of attention due to its radical style, it was not particularly popular. Aside from its amusing appearance and elegant front end, it was considered the brother of the Chrono, but it was much slower and cost more money. A poor formula for success, especially when you are trying to work with speed-hungry teenagers who are more likely to gravitate towards racing replicas with extra bragging points in the specs, rather than avant-garde style. Thus, production of the CX-125 was discontinued in less than a year, and only 1,000 units were produced, about 500 of which were sold on the domestic market in Italy. Even then, Gilera had enough stock to sell it until 1993, but Piaggio shut down the factory in Arcore, moved production to Pontevedra, and ceased the production of Gilera motorcycles, focusing solely on scooter manufacturing. The Gilera CX-125 was a serious venture for the company, a bold move that is unlikely to be seen again, especially in the affordable price range that the CX offered. Despite its bold aesthetics, the CX was surprisingly simple and much less advanced than its futuristic style suggested. Successful or not, it was an innovative product created by an interesting motorcycle company that has since been humiliated in the most degrading way. Its once proud name now adorns a series of scooters, albeit some of the best.